In this video, I will be making blue Curacao Cupcakes from the complete Antilliaanse Keuken by Jurino Ignacio, published in 2019. I recently took a trip to Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao and really enjoyed the local cuisine such as quiche yena, carne stoba, batata yena, and even more. I told some locals I enjoy the local food and how I collect cookbooks and like to cook authentic ethnic cuisines, and they told me there was a local bookstore that would carry cookbooks that had Antillian food. So I grabbed a taxi, and as I rode out there, the taxi driver was listening to me tell the same story and got into it and even started showing me pictures of his wife's cooking of some authentic Antillian cuisine and listing all of the recipes that a good book would need to include. He got so into it that when we got to the bookstore, he came in with me and started perusing the index of the back of the cookbooks to make sure that whatever I bought had everything that he thought it needed to have in it. So I'm quite confident that this is an authentic Antillian cookbook. And Jurino Ignacio is also just a great chef. I highly recommend you check out his Instagram. He's very talented, and there's some really good recipes in here. So the book has only been published in Dutch. If you don't speak Dutch, then what I did was I just used Google Lens to translate the pages, and I had no problems doing that. There was no confusion or weird translations, at least what I've looked at so far. Now, you can buy this on Amazon. Again, only in Dutch, though. So I will put a listing in the description if you would like to attempt some of the recipes from this book, and I'll probably do more videos from this book in the future as well. The ABC Islands have a fusion of Dutch, Caribbean, and Latin flavors, which is pretty unique to the ABC Islands, in my opinion, as someone who's traveled extensively through the Caribbean. So if that sounds appealing to you and you've never tried it before, I highly recommend you pick up this book. And with that being said, we'll go ahead and hop into the kitchen. Here is the setup for our blue Curacao cupcakes. We kind of have a lot going on here, which can be broadly put into three categories, which is the cake batter, the frosting, and the garnish. So starting from right to left here, we've got blue Curacao liqueur, which I bought in Curacao. We have Crisco vegetable shortening. We've got blue food coloring, diced candied orange peel. This is the zest of one navel orange. This is powdered or confectioner sugar. This is regular sugar. This is butter, unsalted. This is the juice from that same navel orange. This is self-rising flour. Here are three garnish components, which are the little parasols for putting in your beach cupcake here. These are edible sugar pearls, and these are candied or maraschino cherries. These are not strictly necessary for the recipe, but they do make the cupcakes look more attractive at the end. This is vanilla sugar, which is very common in Europe and some other countries or other regions of the world. It is not super common in the United States. I will put a link where you can just buy it off of Amazon. I have a local, actually an Indian market here in town where I was able to buy vanilla sugar. So we don't need a lot of it, but it is useful to keep around if you're going to get into a lot of European and other countries baking. So with all that being said, we're going to go ahead and hop over to the stand mixer. One quick note here before we get started making the cake batter. I did leave off these 4 eggs, which will be included as well in the cake batter, and I'll make sure that those are included in the ingredients list at the beginning of this video as well, so that you don't leave them out if you decide to make this. So we're gonna go ahead and start with putting our butter, which is room temperature, in here, and we're gonna go ahead and put our sugar, in, as well as our vanilla sugar. And now we're just going to go ahead and blend this until it creams together and all the ingredients are incorporated, and I will show you what that looks like when it's done. All right. While this is going on, by the way, you want to preheat your oven to about 320, 325 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 160 degrees Celsius. I went ahead and cracked these eggs, and you can see our mixture has been creamed here. So we're going to go ahead and just dump those eggs in. At this point, we're also going to go ahead and put in the orange zest.
Okay. And then we're just gonna whirl this one more time, or just for a little bit here to get the eggs incorporated, and I'll show you what the batter looks like at that point. Okay, so we've got the sugar and egg mixture incorporated. Now we're gonna go ahead and just put a generous tablespoon of candied orange peel in here. We're also gonna go ahead and put our self-rising flour in. And our orange juice. And now we're just going to beat this until it gets to be a smooth batter. All right, just for completeness sake, so that you all can always follow along with what I'm doing. Whenever you're baking a sweet cake like this, you almost always want a small amount of salt in the dough as well, which I just tossed in there. And I'm just going to mix that for a second to really get that incorporated. Okay, so our batter is done, and now I like to use an ice cream scoop to make sure you're getting an even amount of batter each time. And so now we literally are just scooping our batter into the cups. And I'm gonna keep doing that. I'm not gonna make you watch me fill all of them, but they're going to go in the oven at this point for about 20 to 30 minutes. Make sure you're watching them, and you should be able to tell when they start to brown on the top, or you don't want them to, they'll dry out, so you don't want to overcook them is mostly what I'm saying. So I will show you the completed cakes once they're out of the oven. I just took the cupcakes out of the oven, and they are here on a cooling rack. We want these to get all the way back to room temperature, because when we frost them, if they're still warm, it will cause the frosting to partially melt, and it'll make a big mess. And they won't be pretty like you want them to be when you give them out. So we're gonna let these cool, and in the meantime, we're gonna set these aside and go ahead and make our frosting. We're gonna make our frosting now, and this is pretty easy, but it can take a little bit of time here. So we're gonna go ahead and just put in our confectioner's sugar and the Crisco vegetable shortening. And we're going to use the whisk attachment. And this is going to go for, this can take a while. You're going to need to blend these together until they form a paste. And that can take, essentially you want to double in volume with the way it's currently sitting right now. So that can take up to 7 to 10 minutes for this kind of frosting. So I'm going to let this go, and then I'll show you guys the consistency of what it should look like before we add our flavorings into the frosting. All right, you can see the Crisco vegetable shortening and the sugar have fully incorporated with each other into a paste. Now, again, room temperature butter for this. We're going to go ahead and put our butter in. And now we're just going to continue to mix it further until that is also incorporated. And then the last step will be to actually add the frosting flavorings. So I'm going to do that again, and I'll show you the result. The stand mixer has finished incorporating our icing. You want to let this really beat for a while also, because it incorporates more air, it gives you more volume of icing to work with, and it makes your icing a little lighter and fluffier. So now we're going to add the flavorings. Be very careful at this step. You definitely can put too much water in, and that can cause things to not be proper when you're ready to actually pipe them over your cupcakes. So the recipe calls for two tablespoons of blue curacao, but I'm just going to put 1 in to start. And I'm not going to put any of the coloring in, the food coloring in yet, because again, I want to slowly add in these flavorings to make sure that I get the consistency of the icing that I want. So this is after 1 tablespoon of the curacao has been incorporated, and you can already see it's starting to take on more of like a whipped cream texture. So again, I'm going to add a little bit less than a full tablespoon here to finish up the actual flavoring part of this. All right, it looks like it's holding pretty stiff peaks still. So I'm going to go ahead and add drops of food coloring now to give it the bright blue texture that you see, or the bright blue color that you see in the liqueur. And Now I'm just gonna, from this point on, I'm just gonna add 1 drop at a time until I get the color that I want. So I'll show you guys what the final color ends up looking like. And here it is. Make sure you give it a good final mix with your spatula just to avoid any white streaks, because you want it to be that nice sky blue for the finished cupcake. So that looks good. It's very light and fluffy, which is what we want. I did not want a dense frosting for these. So, okay, I'm gonna fill up the piping bag and we're gonna get to the fun part, decorating the cupcakes. All right, our piping bag is full and we're gonna go ahead and start decorating here. I like to start in the center and then move my way outward. And then from there, move my way upward. And there we go. So I'll do a couple more here so you can see. And one more. And there you go. You can see this happens a lot, especially with amateurs, they got progressively better as I went. This recipe gives you plenty of icing to do all 12, so you don't need to skimp. I skimped a little bit on this one, so I'll give that to someone who's counting their calories, I suppose. So I'm going to finish icing these, and then we will get to the last step, which is doing the garnish. All right, let's garnish these bad boys. Or girls. Could be either one. So just drop a few of these sugar pearls around, and if a few drop, it's no big deal. Looks like a nice sea foam on top of ocean water here. So, all right, you can see here, I took the maraschino cherries and I put them on a plate on a paper towel because the juice will run and stain and it won't look pretty. But we're just gonna take a maraschino cherry or a candied cherry and just put that right on the top of each one. Try to get the rounded side towards the top to help make it look a little prettier and smoother. And then each one, make sure if you get a parasol to make these, again, themed here, make sure you get one with a long enough toothpick attached to it so that you can stick it in there and get it into the cake, because the frosting is so light that it will not hold the parasol by itself. So there we go. That is our blue Curacao cupcakes. I'm going to finish doing these garnishes and then I'll show you guys the final result of them all when I'm done.